All right, let's get started here. First of all, thanks to everyone that made the effort to attend live. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, there'll be some questions that I can answer that may be bothering you or that you may need an answer to. Overall, I'll just make a couple comments. We're on to week 3 now. We're on to chapter 3, I believe now. And it's business as usual. So all we've got going on this week is to read chapter 3, watch the lecture, watch the videos, and do the chapter 3 quiz. That's it. So we should be getting into a good pattern now. It's a rinse and repeat at this point. So I'm going to mute you, David. There you go. A little bit of, I could hear your keyboard there. So yeah, we're into sort of the pattern, the way things are. I see lots of people have already chosen a term project or a term paper topic. I want to go over that just one more time because I'm still getting an awful lot of email. Now I recognize that most of the people that are sending me email aren't bothering to attend or watch office hours videos, but when you choose your topic, you go into the groups, topics tab or item in the menu. You choose of the 12 topics, you make your choice, and then you get a message that says success, blah, 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 and it says something about nothing else to access. So it's kind of a confusing, weird message. But once you've made that choice, all you have to do is then go into the assignments tab and you'll see the topic that you've chosen. So it has not disappeared. It's not an error. You're not unsuccessful in signing up as long as you can see it in the assignments tab. So keep that in mind, please. The vast majority of people have now finished the course requirements quiz and the academic integrity module submission. So they are seeing quizzes. If you are not seeing quizzes, there's a couple things that could have happened. If you've made submissions, they are either not perfect, so something's wrong. So check your grades and see what comments I've made, if any. I'll make a comment in the, I'll make a comment in the academic integrity module, and it'll typically be the most common error is people that do not show their name in the screenshot. So that's the big error there, always has been, probably always will be. So you would typically find that you've got a half out of 1 for the academic integrity module, and that will prevent you from seeing the quiz. The other reason, so I don't generally make comments on the course requirements quiz. The other problem now that the course requirements quiz is past the due date by several weeks, by the way, is that I have to manually mark those. So I have to review them because they're late. Blackboard makes me or causes me to do that. If you submit and you immediately send me an email saying I've submitted, I've got a perfect mark. I've got whatever it is, 22 out of 22 or 24 out of 24. I still have to review it. So I've said this in previous office hours. So hopefully anyone that hasn't got that message will get it now. If you submit at 11 o'clock on the Friday night before the quiz is due, there is just about a 0% chance that I'm going to break my Friday evening in order to go and review that and make sure that you can see the quiz. In other words, if you haven't done it, do it early in the week, not late. So that's essentially my only message. I'm still, and again, it's not typically the people that attend the office hours or watch the office hours later, but I'm still getting an awful lot of email that I'm just directing people to watch the office hours. But I am pleased to see that we're achieving some mass of people that are attending, and we are getting some views. So that's essentially all I have to say for this course, for this office hours. Are there any questions that I can address for anyone? I'll take them in chat, or I'll take them through audio or video, whichever you prefer.
I know this might have been said in another office hours,
Yep.
but just to make sure, because I did send an email as well. The chapter quizzes, they are open book, right?
Yes, yes, I remember your email. I thought I responded to that.
Yeah, you definitely, yeah, you did. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
whenever I,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would
because,
never. Sorry, go ahead.
because whenever I think quizzes, I'm thinking, okay, I immediately think, okay, closed book.
Yes.
So,
Um,
yeah.
no, they're definitely open book, and a couple reasons why I do that. One is I would never want to put the honest person that did it without supervision at a disadvantage to the person that cheated anyways, right? So
Yeah.
if it's not proctored, it's always open book. That includes midterms and things like that. So the other thing is the purpose of the quiz, and I know that I don't release the answers to the quiz, but the purposes of the quiz is to make sure that you're getting a decent understanding. So I would love you to spend an hour or whatever on that quiz after hopefully you've read and studied the chapter, maybe listen to my lecture and go through and make sure that you understood everything that was said. So it's kind of an incentive to review the chapter. And I do that because when I taught this in person, I first taught this in Durham, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now. And I would ask at each lecture who had read the chapters, and the answer was always just about no one, which I guess is fine. But when we got to the midterm, my first time teaching, most people failed miserably because they hadn't done any reading. So I'm just trying to incentivize people to continue reading.
Okay, yeah, because I did the first two quizzes closed book, and I did, and I think you could see my marks weren't as great as I thought they would they realistically should be.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, please open book any resources, including Google, but it's all in the text. I still get people that are saying to me, I'm not doing well in the quiz. And my first question is, do you own the text? And usually that answer is no. So that's why I make the text mandatory, because the quizzes come straight out of there. I wrote them. Sorry, that's a lie. They were part of the publisher's group of questions, but they do come straight out of the text. So
Yeah, I do own the textbook, so I was just like,
no, awesome.
that was even more. So I was like, whoa, that's a little much.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we've got a total of 3% invested in the first 2 quizzes, so it's not a ton of impact, but yeah, moving forward, keep that textbook with you.
okay, thank you.
Yep, you're very welcome. So do you have the midterm exam and final exam? I'm working on my reading skills apparently here. Do the midterm exam and final exam have time limits? Yes, absolutely. I noticed that the midterm is 120 minutes and the final exam is 180 minutes in the syllabus. Yes, that's exactly right. They do have time limits. So yeah, that will be. So the midterm will be an unproctored open book exam, and only because it is unproctored. If we were in person, we would be doing it in class, and I would be walking up and down the aisles and proctoring it. But it will be an open book online exam. It will have a time limit of 2 hours, and there will be very little flexibility in the actual times that it's available. It won't be open for 24 hours or anything like that. So it'll be a matter as we get closer. There's no sense in talking to me about it now because, we've got several weeks to go before we get there. But as we get closer, if you have another class that's a conflict or another exam that's a conflict, let me know and I will set aside a specific time for you. But the vast majority of the class will write it all at once in that 2-hour period. All right. Is the midterm going to have multiple choice, true or false, short questions or long questions? What type of questions can we expect? So I would say to look at the syllabus. It's vague enough to give me some latitude. Typically in 2 hours, and don't hold me to this, there'd be probably 60 to 80 multiple choice or multiple answer and occasionally true false questions. and 6-ish, and I'm just I'm not committing to this, but 6-ish short answer questions that usually the ratio is about 1-to-1 between the multiple choice and the short answer, or 2-to-1 multiple choice to short answer. So somewhere in that range. So if there's 80 marks for multiple choice / multiple answer / maybe a bit of true false, then it's 40 to 80 marks worth of short answer, somewhere in that range. Okay. So we will have an office hours before the midterm, and we will talk about it extensively. I will probably give you some practice, some ability to do a practice exam to practice the multiple choice stuff. The short answer questions are usually based around the requirements for the chapter. So and by requirements, I mean learning outcomes. So if I look at chapter 3 that I'm looking at right now, our learning outcomes are describe how changes in businesses' competitive landscape influence changing IS infrastructure needs. And there's 3 other ones. Those are excellent places. If you understand what the learning outcomes are and you can answer the learning outcomes, you're going to do well in the short answer portion of the midterm and the final for that matter. Okay, does that answer fairly fully? Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, Professor. Now, I know you stated it before. This is more to the group project. Just a question for that.
Yeah, sure.
So I chose my course, or the one I wanted to do, right? And there was no issue. And I know that they are group projects, right? Is there any way well, they're individual too, but is there any way to like reach other people to see what their thoughts are on what, like, because I chose the Volkswagen one, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I like cars, and I also it's just an interesting topic for me, right?
Yes.
But I'd like to meet other people who were going to do that one as well. Is that allowed? I don't want to also lose marks too, right?
So it's not a group project. It is an individual project. You're welcome to reach out to anyone you want to discuss it. Obviously, you don't want to be sharing content, that sort of thing, right? But if you want to discuss it, I think a way to do that would probably be through the general discussions tab, maybe post a thread and just anyone that's interested to, you can set up whatever you want, Snap or whatever way of getting together. I don't sort of publish or do a direct connection between everyone within the topic itself. So it's just a mechanism for me to have pools of people choosing topics. So it's not really a group. And again, just to reemphasize, it is expected to be an individual effort.
Perfect. Thank you very much, brother.
You're very welcome. Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, I guess the unstated sort of requirements for this week too are to start pushing forward on that term paper. So as I've said before, the longer you take and the more revisions you do, the more likely you are to be really happy with the mark outcome that you get. Even if at this point you're just lining up good sources, then you should be good, right? You're well ahead of the curve, but we all know how busy the term gets, and there'll probably be a blank spot around midterms where you're scrambling to study for various class midterms, and maybe there's assignments due at that time in a bunch of classes. So anything you can get under your belt and get moving, even percolating. I'm a big believer in getting sources and doing reading, and even if I'm not consciously thinking about it, if I've done the reading, it's kind of percolating in the background for me. So I may have creative ideas when I turn my attention to it again. So, are there any other questions that I can help with? This is a great forum, even if it's a repetitive question, don't worry about it. I don't mind speaking to it when in a platform like this, as opposed to getting 70 emails on the same question that I've already covered. Even if I've covered it, ask me again. I'm happy to go over it, because this is one way to communicate to everyone potentially. So like an announcement. Alrighty, folks, if there's nothing more, then please get on with your Saturday. Enjoy nice day in the south of Peterborough region anyways. Hopefully you guys are enjoying a good day in Peterborough. And yeah, I will talk to you as needed. I hear someone?
Thank you very much, Professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll have a good day in Oshawa.
Excellent. Enjoy it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you as well. Go ahead, Shreya. I see that you're trying to speak. I'm not hearing anything from you. If you want to type it or adjust whatever technical issue you're having. Microphone isn't working. Yeah, that'll do it. I inadvertently place mine on mute every so often when I go to move it. So I don't know if you've got a mute button, but take a look at that. I want you to please explain the Properties 5 principal notion from module 2. I do not know exactly what you're referring to be honest. Are you saying proprietors 5 principal notion? Oh, the threat of substitute product. Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. So let me pull up my text here. Bear with me. First question is where I'm going to find that. So what I can say without staring at the text is that there are the sort of 5 factors that denote what the level of competition is. So I'm gonna, sorry, bear with me. I'm gonna pull up my text here. Just taking me a second here, getting something went wrong in my bookshelf. And I think what you're talking about is the Porter's 5. So Porter's 5 forces, and I'm peeling this straight out of Investopedia because for whatever reason my library didn't work in my textbook, which is fantastic. Sorry, apologize for the delay. It just annoys me when things don't work. All righty. I'd rather use the textbook, so I am successfully getting into it now. I'm just going to pull up the Porter's 5 forces. All right. So it is on specifically page 57 of the textbook. I've managed to get there now. And what we've got is bargaining power of buyers, threat of new entrants, threat of substitute products or services, bargaining power of suppliers, and the rivalry amongst existing firms. So, sorry, threat of substitute bargaining power. I read from the text in your list, but it's not crystal clear. Okay, fine. Hopefully I can help out. So when you're a firm and you have a product and you're selling that product to the public, this is how I think of it anyways. You can make way more profit if, for instance, there's no one else that's making that product, right? If you've got a unique product, if you have a monopoly, you do very well. So these are the factors that you have to consider when determining how much you can charge for your product, essentially. So bargaining power of buyers. So the buyer is your customer. So if the customer has a whole bunch of other choices in what they can buy, then they can go ahead and choose a different person to buy it from. So it's not so much that they have different choices, but different vendors that they can go to. So if I'm McDonald's, for instance, there are a lot of fast food burgers out there. Okay. So the bargaining power of buyers is a little higher than if I was a company that made the only, the only computer or the only, trying to come up with something very unique. Say there's only Bell telephone available. That's the only place that you can get service from. Then the bargaining power of buyers is very low because they don't have anywhere else to go ahead and buy it from. If, on the other hand, there's a whole bunch of different companies offering cellular service, then they have lots of choices. So if you're in a monopoly or towards a monopoly situation, you can charge an awful lot more for cell time in that case. The related to that is the threat of substitute products or services. So if, again, let's say I'm McDonald's and I have the Big Mac, but there's Burger King's, there's Wendy's, there's also the sub shop. All this is food, all this is fast food. So the more substitute products that are out there, the more products that do a similar or the same thing, the less bargaining or the less power you have to set price high. Okay, so the more you're going to have to compete on price is essentially what I'm trying to say. The bargaining power of suppliers is a lot like the bargaining power of buyers, except these are your inputs. So if you're in a factory and you are building widgets and you need, say, steel and aluminum and copper to build those widgets, and there's someone that has a monopoly or a lockdown on the price of those supplies. That's a terrible example, of course. So let's say you needed steel and aluminum and gold, and you also needed a proprietary oil to put into your process. And there was only one oil, one place that you could get that oil to do that. Then while your suppliers of gold, steel, aluminum, whatever metals I said, don't have any power, your oil person does, because you can only get that oil from there. Okay, so they would have a high, the suppliers would have a high, strong position, just like you would have a strong position if you were in a monopoly or near monopoly situation. So the higher power that your suppliers have, the more they can charge you, essentially. That's what it means. So the more they can charge you, the less margin you're going to make on the back end. If that oil guy is supplying all your competitors, you're all paying a lot of money for that oil, but yet the customers can go ahead and they can buy your end product, your widget, from a bunch of different places, then that doesn't leave much margin. Okay. The threat of new entrants. So the threat of new entrants is how expensive it is to get in your business. So if you're talking about a McDonald's franchise, there's $1 million deposit or something like that, or $1 million cost that you have to put out to get into that business as a very basic amount of money to get in. So that's a fairly, what I would call, a high barrier to entry. If you're talking about, say, becoming an oil producer, it's a hugely high barrier to entry. So your threat of new entrants is not very high. However, if you're selling shoes in a mall, just about anyone could do that, right? It's not that expensive, relatively speaking, to rent some space in a mall, throw up your sign, and buy some shoes for retail. So you would be in competition with a lot more shoe sellers in that mall than if you had something that had a high barrier to entry. Sometimes that can be government regulation. So if you want to be in the business of creating nuclear fuel, for instance, like we have a company in Port Hope and Coburg that does that, called Cameco. They build or they create pellets for nuclear reactors. They are very, very regulated by the government. I can't, even if I had $20 million, I can't jump into that business and build myself a factory and start making nuclear pellets. Okay. And then the last element to it is the rivalry amongst existing firms. And that's more a relationship sort of thing. If you hate your competitors, you tend to try and undercut them. You try and make their life miserable. And that, by undercutting them, by going low price, you're killing your own margins and you're not making as much money. Does that sort of cover it with some examples there? Good. Okay. And I guess the only other thing, yeah, you're very welcome, of course. The only other thing that I would say is that at the end of the day, this is a way of analyzing. If you were going to invest in a business, or you're thinking of getting into a line of business, you might use this Porter's 5 forces to figure out how good a business it would be to be in. Okay. Still no mic. Okay, excellent.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry for holding up the class on Saturdays.
Oh, no. I'm here for another half an hour, so no worries.
Thank you. I have one question related to grid computing, which is using dedicated grids. Like, what are some advantages of using grid computing? Because they were compared to supercomputers. So, like, are they more dynamic, or they are just used because they're less expensive?
I would say less expensive would be the primary issue, because supercomputers are super expensive, right? There's a very finite number of them in the world. I'm not up to date on how many supercomputers are out there, but at one point there was like 5 or 6 of them in the world. So maybe there's 100 or a couple hundred or whatever. There's not many. And it's just much easier as we've gotten better at doing sort of networking and stuff to do the grid approach, where you can emulate a supercomputer by using a whole bunch of ordinary basic computers. What really happens is that you often use the processing power of the computers when you're not fully engaged in using them. So let's say at a university, you could set up grid computing in a computer lab, and it would just be all the times when you've got downtime that you're spinning up those computers to use as much computing power as you can. But if someone sits down and does a lab on them, then it goes back into the background. It just gives you sort of access to a whole lot of computing power at a low cost, because usually you're not going to go out and buy 100 computers to make a grid computing sort of network. You're going to use your existing computers to do so.
Got it.
Okay.
So then what are some of the disadvantages, except for the power differences between them?
Well, disadvantages, that's a good question. I guess at the end of the day, the supercomputer is able to handle a whole lot of processing sort of simultaneously, can probably bite off a bigger chunk of computing. Whereas, you're ultimately in your grid computing, you've got to break down your problem into separate, smaller sub-problems, right? You know, whatever that big processing chunk is that the supercomputer is doing, it can do it all at once because it's doing millions or billions of computations per second. But you'd have to break down your equations or whatever into manageable bytes in grid computing to let it do that. So there's some sophistication that's required to do that as well, right?
Yeah,
That'd be
got
the
it.
biggest difference to me. There's probably others, but that's what I would think of right away.
No, it's clear now.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? And no worries about the microphone issue whatsoever. These things happen. All right. If there's no questions, get on with your day, please, and enjoy your Saturday. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.